to Ombudsman.live. My name is Stephen Rue, and I'm your host for today's podcast, as we're going to discuss conflict de-escalation. This topic is important to you because we all encounter conflict in our daily lives and at work. Understanding how conflict is created and how we can attempt to resolve it has practical significance to all of us. As an attorney, mediator, and life coach, I've dealt with literally thousands of conflicts over my 34-year career. I've been educated at Southern Methodist University, Loyola University for my MBA, law degree, and certification as a mediator, Louisiana State University for certification in life coaching, Harvard Law School for certification in negotiation and leadership, and now I'm presently studying for my doctorate degree from North Central University, where today's assignment is to present a podcast on de-escalation of conflict. Have you ever been on an escalator at a shopping mall? Well, have you ever been on a de-escalator? Yes, well, you will today. Ladies and gentlemen, in discussing de-escalation of conflict, we must understand what conflict is. What are the root causes of interpersonal and work-related conflict? What is escalation of conflict? What are the stages of escalation? Yes, what is de-escalation of conflict and conflict resolution? We will learn who can assist in conflict de-escalation and resolution, and learn what is an ombudsman, a mediator, and a reflective practitioner. In a brief 15 minutes, we will have covered all of these important topics. The information provided is based on relevant scholarly literature on these topics, and I have provided the citations in the transcript and important references that can be found on our website, Ombudsman.live. Conflict is defined as an incompatibility of goals or values between two or more parties in a relationship. Conflict resolution entails parties coming into an accord to resolve their fundamental differences, accepting each other's continuing existence, and ending adversarial behavior against one another. Work-related conflicts amongst co-workers can arise in various forms. Common types of work-related conflicts include communication conflicts that occur when there's a breakdown in information sharing, misrepresentations, or poor listening skills. Task-related conflicts arise when there are disagreements about work methods, task assignments, and conflicting goals. Personality conflicts occur when there are clashes in personal styles, values, or preferences. Power and authority conflicts exist, and they arise when there are disputes over decision-making, distribution of resources, or hierarchical disagreements. Interdepartmental conflicts occur when there is a disagreement or rivalry between different departments or teams within an organization. There are values and ethics conflicts that arise when there are differences in ethical standards, moral principles, and conflicting values amongst individuals. So what are the root causes of conflict? According to Moore and Morgan, there are 9 major causes or drivers of conflict, including the parties, personal histories and relationships, emotions, communications, information available to each party that would assist resolution of the conflict, potential resolution procedures, and the relative power and influence of the parties. Including in this is also structural limits and avenues in which the conflict may be resolved based on beliefs, values, and attitudes of each party. Interpersonal and work-related conflicts can occur from root causes of miscommunications, differences in values and beliefs, competition of resources, role ambiguity and expectations, personality differences, organizational culture and climate, interdependency and interactions within the company, unresolved past conflicts, organizational changes such as restructuring, mergers, and layoffs creating fear and conflict within the workplace, and personal factors such as stress, personal challenges, and the like. But do you know there are actually benefits in conflicts that people often do not recognize? While interpersonal conflicts and co-worker conflicts are generally seen as negative, they can also have positive benefits and positive outcomes. Here are a few benefits that can arise through effective managing and resolving of conflicts. Improved problem solving and decision making abilities. Enhance understanding and communications. Strengthened relationships. Enhance self-awareness and emotional intelligence. And organizational learning and growth that arises through the resolution of conflict. Various influences of conflict include power and status, where there's power imbalance and conflict escalation, amplification of communication and decision-making issues, fostering empathy and understanding amongst the party can be very important. What's also influences conflict are laws, including employment laws govern aspects of employer-employment relationship, anti-discrimination laws, harassment prevention, equal opportunity, and workplace safety. Company policies and procedures also come into play with conflicts, as there are guidelines of expected behavior and conduct within the organization. Corporate culture is also a major influence, as it influences the values, beliefs, and norms that practice within the organization. These are very major influences when dealing with conflicts. Working with any company, we all know what conflict escalation is. We've all seen conflict escalation. Have you been in a situation that someone has received an unwanted sexual advance? Are there situations at work when co-workers are fighting for the same goal and are in competition against each other? Are there times in which the conflict originally starts out small, but grows and gets worse? That is conflict escalation. And that's what we will talk about next. Conflict escalation refers to the process in which conflict intensifies or increases of severity over time. It occurs when the initial disagreement or tension between individuals grows more significantly and complex, leading to heightened emotions, increased hostility, and or a deterioration of the relationship. We see what happens is that there's a communication breakdown. Unresolved issues have not been addressed. There's an escalation of tactic used to gain advantage over the other person. There's an involvement of third parties, often called triangulation. As conflicts persist, individuals may perceive threat to their person or to their profession. There's an escalation of emotions and a reinforcement of negative behaviors, such as aggression or hostility, remains unaddressed if reinforced through repetition, which can escalate conflict. There are 7 stages of heightened conflict escalation. The first is accommodation, where a party is willing to satisfy the wishes of another. The second is problem solving, where parties in conflict communicate their mutual goal of resolving conflict. Third is personal antagonism, where one believes the other party is the problem. Fourth is issue multiplication, where one collects negative data to support a hypothesis that the other person is the problem. Triangulation is where one communicates with a third party about the conflict or another party to the conflict. The third party may contribute to escalation by creating an alliance and supporting one's beliefs, or by de-escalation, in which one party debunks one's accumulation of negative data that supports their belief about another person. Number 6 is open hostility. That's where a party in conflict has escalated their disdain and harbors resentment to the other party to the point of conspicuous statements and actions to that effect. The seventh is change in social structure. This is the stage where communication is broken down and where workers often resign or get terminated. The ongoing conflict has escalated to the point that there's social structure in the organization, which changes its norms and behaviors. During the accommodating phase of conflict resolution, one party involves the conflict adopts and cooperates on a rather conciliatory approach, seeking to accommodate the other party's needs and preferences. You see yielding and giving in, avoidance of confrontation, sacrifice and compromise, trying to maintain the relationship, but also there may be a harboring of potential resentment and discontentment for doing so. This usually occurs when there is an imbalance of power or status. During the problem-solving stage of conflict escalation, the focus shifts to addressing and resolving the conflict. Here, the parties seek identification of underlying issues, generate evaluating solutions, negotiate and compromise, then implement the agreement. During the issue multiplication phase of conflict escalation, conflict parties find multiple issues to find grievance with the other parties. They identify multiple issues of grievance, compound resentment and frustration, increased tension and hostility, have polarized perspectives, all of which creates difficulty in negotiation and problem solving. During triangulation, as discussed earlier, one party seeks and communicates with third parties to bring them into the mix of influence over the situation. This can be good and this can be bad. And so far as co-workers can make the situation worse or make it better, depending on their mode of influence. Then there is, during the change in social structure phase of conflict escalation, there's a dynamic shift in the relationship that affects the workplace. There's a power shift of realignment of the workplace, a formulation of alliances and coalitions, social polarization, breakdown of collaborative relationships, and change in the social structure of norms, values, and behaviors within the workplace. My goodness, conflict escalation sure does create a lot of turmoil. Perhaps conflict resolution professionals can help to reduce or eliminate conflict. We now have already spoken about conflict, the root causes and drivers of conflict, and conflict escalation. Why did we do that before we even talk about conflict de-escalation? Because we need to understand the root causes and problems that cause the conflicts to escalate on that Mount Everest at the peak of the conflict, to now learn how to go down and de-escalate as we go down the mountain to conflict resolution. So when we're looking at the de-escalation of conflict, what is the role of an ombudsman? In today's dynamic work environments, conflicts are bound to arise. These conflicts can stem from various factors, such as differing perspectives, interpersonal issues, and conflicting goals. When left unaddressed, workplace conflicts can lead to decreased productivity, strained relationships, and hostile work environments. To mitigate these negative consequences, organizations often employ an ombudsman, a neutral, independent, and confidential third party, to facilitate conflict resolution. The role of an ombudsman is helping workers resolve work-related conflicts. And ombudsmans help define the conflict and ways to resolve it. The ombudsman explores conflict escalation and de-escalation, and then works on how the parties together can work on de-escalating the work-related conflict and interpersonal conflicts between the two workers. The ombudsman is an impartial individual appointed by an organization to provide an informal avenue for dispute resolution. Ombudsmen act as neutral parties, ensuring fairness and confidentiality throughout the resolution process. They serve as an accessible resource for employees, providing a safe space for discussing concerns, grievances, and conflicts without fear of reprisal. As discussed, they help define what the actual conflict is. So when you understand what is the actual root of conflict, then you have a better chance of de-escalating and resolving that conflict. De-escalation of conflict is focusing on the mitigation of the intensity of the conflict and preventing further escalation. De-escalation involves strategies that foster open dialogue, active listening, and empathy on each party. It aims to create a supportive environment that encourages parties to collaborate and find common ground, paving a way for conflict resolution. The Ombudsman ensures the confidentiality of all discussions, allowing employees to express their concerns freely without fear of retribution. By maintaining neutrality, the Ombudsman builds trust and credibility, assuring employees that their perspectives will be treated fairly and without bias. Ombudsmen work on active listening and mediation. An ombudsman acts with attentive listening, understanding the underlying causes of the conflict. They facilitate open communication, enabling each party to express their grievances and perspectives while feeling safe, looking for mutually beneficial solutions. The ombudsman works on effective communication between the parties and coaches the parties in how to facilitate better communication between the parties in the dispute. The ombudsman may also provide referrals and resources to the parties so that they may gain a broader understanding of how to resolve their own conflicts and the conflict at hand, and also understanding the organization's policies, procedures, and resources. An ombudsman may share their own perspectives on the conflict based on their own experiences and expertise. This can provide insights and alternative viewpoints that help the individuals gain a broader understanding of the situation beyond simply trying to empathize with the other party's perspectives. The ombudsman shall validate the feelings of each party, suggest empathy and understanding of the other party's position, provide positive reinforcement to encourage the parties to reach out and seek whatever necessary assistance they need for resolution of the conflict, for them to focus on resolution as opposed to focus on escalation of conflict, emphasize their own personal abilities to positively resolve conflicts, and encourage self-care, that they can respect and trust themselves and the other party in the conflict. Again, they also are reassured that there's ongoing support through the ombudsman to provide guidance and to continue to maintain the confidentiality while trying to work to a satisfactory resolution. A reflective practitioner and mediator acts to resolve the conflict through resolution of thoughtful and strategic approach to resolving interpersonal and co-worker conflicts. They also actively listen. They assess the conflict, create safe and respectful environments, facilitate communication, act as a mediator to go back and forth to try to present different perspectives to each parties, and generate options and brainstorm to find solutions to the problem. They also assist in negotiations and the agreement and provide follow-up and support. Whether parties in conflict are dealing with an ombudsman, a mediator, or a reflective practitioner, an intervener, the third parties are promoting active listening, empathetic communication, understanding nonverbal communication cues, working on clarifying questions that each party may have, to have a neutral and non-judgmental approach to try to deal with the problem, and to have clear and transparent communication on all stages of the attempts to de-escalate and resolve the conflict. It is important for the third-party intervener to understand the context of the conflict the background of the parties, etc., by collecting and analyzing background information. It's a critical step for the third-party intervener in an attempt to resolve the conflict. They must identify the root causes, access power dynamics, tailor their approach to the individuals, ensure confidentiality and privacy. Of course, they must also actively listen and create better communication styles and resources to each party. Organizations, companies can provide critical roles in conflict resolution within the workplace by providing training to its employees, how to address effective conflict resolution through proper training of communication skills, negotiation, problem solving, and emotional intelligence. Companies can offer work group conflict interventions with teams and work groups so that people can discuss together on a platform of team members to express their concerns, clarify misunderstandings, and work together towards resolution. Companies can also have coaches and mediators to help provide necessary guidance to the conflicting parties. Conflict de-escalation is a critical process that aims of reduction in tensions, promote understanding, and facilitate resolution at each stage of conflict escalation. So here's how de-escalation can occur at each stage. During the accommodating stage, conflict de-escalation can be fostered by promoting compromise and finding mutual agreeable solutions. Encouraging open dialogue, active listening, and empathetic understanding can help parties recognize common interests to reach a middle ground. During the problem-solving stage, conflict de-escalation occurs when a systematic approach to address underlying issues occurs. The parties engage in collaborative problem-solving techniques such as brainstorming, analyzing options, and evaluating potential solutions. During personal antagonism stage, it involves promoting empathy, respect, and empathy of the other party. Facilitators and mediators can help parties recognize and acknowledge the emotional aspects of the conflict and encourage them to express their feelings in a constructive manner. A non-judgmental space to try to resolve, have a reconciliation and de-escalation with the goal of conflict resolution. During the issue multiplication stage, de-escalation involves addressing the underlying issues and preventing further complications by encouraging the parties to prioritize and focus on the core concerns to help reduce the proliferation of new issues in the ongoing conflict. During triangulation, conflict de-escalation can occur by redirecting communication back to the original parties involved. The facilitators, ombudsmen, and mediators can provide communication directly with each other, avoiding the reliance on third-party information to influence the outcome. During open hostility phase, conflict de-escalation can occur by promoting understanding, providing a safe and structured environment for the parties to express their grievances and concerns and diffuse the hostile emotions. Mediation or conflict resolution techniques can emphasize active listening, empathy, and constructive dialogue between the parties. In the change of social structure, de-escalation generally occurs involving a broader impact on the conflict on the social dynamics of the entire organization. It requires intervention such as team building activities, conflict resolution training, and fostering a culture of open communication and collaboration. Now it's time for the conclusion of Ombudsman.live podcast on de-escalation of conflict. I hope you've enjoyed this informative podcast talking about how conflicts in both work and interpersonal actually occur. What are the root causes of conflict? What are the drivers that promote conflict? How does conflict escalate? How does conflict de-escalate? And what professionals are available to help assist in conflict resolution, as well as what can your own company do to assist in the education of conflict resolution to improve communication skills, greater empathy, a great culture so that we quickly deal with the inevitable conflicts before they have the chance to escalate. I have provided, as an attachment to this podcast, the scholarly literature references that are the basis of all the information that you have heard today. Also, you can find the actual podcast and a copy of the references on our website, ombudsman.live. Until we speak again, my name is Stephen Rue. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you.